Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here today with another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. And today I want to talk about the Galactic War, and better yet, how to be successful at the Galactic War. This is really going to be the first video in probably a three-part series, so if I don't cover what you're looking for, don't worry, there's more to come. Alright, so my first tip for you is that Galactic War is very different from Arena. While your goal is similar to have, say, a 5-man, 5-gal lineup that can handle the situation, what makes it different is that in the arena, you just need to win at all costs. If you have one person standing with one nick of life left, you win. Hands down, period, that's fine. Galactic War is quite different. You need instead to construct a lineup that barely wins. You need to have a lineup that wins by a landslide so that you can continue on to the next battle, and the next battle, and the next battle, because your health total remains as low as it was before. So this leads you to have to think about these in a slightly different manner. Having a lineup that just goes in, bursts down quite a bit, takes a ton of damage, it's not really going to be the most effective lineup for Galactic War. So that brings me to number 2. In Galactic War, healers are incredibly useful. So characters like the Jedi Consular that you might have built, but you've sort of given up on for the arena, they become incredibly useful for Galactic War. I especially like the Jedi Consular because his heal cooldown becomes quite a bit lower as you buff him up. So you want to make sure you put some ability mats into Jedi healing so that you can use his cooldown more consistently. Again, Barriss Offee, you may have taken her out of your arena lineup. She becomes really useful in Galactic War. More and more and more healers becomes incredibly useful. Alright, tip number 3 is cooldowns themselves. You want to be very careful about your cooldowns. Essentially what you want to do is use your cooldowns early in the battle so that they will be available early on in the next battle. When this becomes especially difficult is with heals, because you don't really want to be healing early on. Heals can be a little bit different where you want to maybe heal mid-battle, so that you go into the next battle with mostly full health people, but you don't really want to have all your heals on cooldown in case you run into some massive AoE buffed start that you need to immediately heal up from. What I like to do is sort of stagger my heals. For instance, I use Old Daka quite a bit, but I don't use her heal very often because it's not quite as powerful. So Old Daka's heal will often be up. I pretty much spam the Jedi Counselor's heal, and Luminara's heal I use a little bit more sparingly because the cooldown is a bit longer. Also, since it has a heal over time, I like to use it more in the middle of a fight rather than at the end of the fight, because that heal over time won't carry over to the next battle. Alright, strategy is another element of Galactic Wars that's really important. And what's so fun and cool about Galactic Wars is you get to make your strategy before you go in. So for instance, I see my opponent's lineup here, and I see they have 3 healers, and they have Asajj Ventress. So I know, okay, Poggle the Lesser is not going to be quite as good here, because unless I can bait out her special that removes my buffs, she'll end up eating my buffs. There's going to be a lot of heal here. They're pretty Jedi heavy, so somebody like Sidious is going to be good because he'll dodge quite a bit more. Someone like Dooku will be good because his abilities get turned on when facing Jedi. So basically, being able to make a strategy going in and being able to put together a really solid lineup to counter the lineup you're going to face is very useful, and it's actually really fun. The only downside is that as the free-to-play player, this isn't quite as robust as it could be. The paying player here has a huge advantage because they generally have a large array of people to choose from. So they can really hone a lineup here, and they could go, well, Darth Maul's going to be really good because he hits Jedis really well, and they can bring in a number of characters that you don't have access to as the free-to-play player. So you're going to have less choices, but it does give you that option to really tailor your choices going in. You also know how fast generally these guys are going to be, so you can sort of work off of that as well. All right, another important point of Galactic Wars is, in my other videos, I often say you want 5 good characters, and you want to go from there. And that is really true for Arena. It's a little bit less true for Galactic War. And what I mean by that is you still want 5 awesome guys, but you do need some subs that are reasonably good. And you want people who are good at specific things. So for instance, I like Clone Wars Chewbacca for Galactic Wars. He's easy to get. You come already with a 3-star one. You can put him up to 4 without much problem. Put a little bit of money into him. He's level 60. And suddenly you have a guy that you can sub in against certain lineups where it looks like, they're going to do quite a bit of early damage. I can stick in a Chewbacca, have him taunt, and die, and not care that much. And if he doesn't die and I'm able to heal him up before he dies, that's great too. But having somebody that you know you can sub in and die can be useful, and having extra healers can be useful as well. So somebody like Talia becomes more useful. I haven't bothered to bring her all the way up to 60. She's too expensive. But every now and then, even though I have all these characters, I'll say, oh boy, Jedi Counselor died, Luminara died. Now I only have old Daka. You know what? Just throw Talia in there. At least it's one more heal. It can help out in a pinch. It can be useful. Now another strategy you can do, jumping off from this, is having whole other lineups that you send in there with a specific duty of dying. So you can say, okay, I can see this army that I'm about to face is all area of attack, specials, and once they exhaust all that, they're not going to be that potent, but I have to survive that wave. So what you can do is you can send in a secondary army. And so I have a number of characters I don't use that much. So maybe I'll send in Veers, a Jawa, Imagundai, Stormtrooper, and Tusken Raider. They have a fair amount of health. Hopefully they can stay alive just long enough for the computer AI to burn everything. They die, and then I bring in my new real lineup to finish the job. And having said that, that means that yes, as the computer uses their specials and stuff, it does carry over and continue to be there. All right. Another really important element of not just Galactic Wars, but of all battles, is knowing your abilities on your characters and your other characters. It's really important to know, for instance, that my Dooku that I have is very good against Jedi. He doesn't just have his regular attack, but his regular attack has special abilities against Jedi. He has a 40% chance to check again, but if it's a Jedi, there's a greater percent chance to stun, and there's a chance to ability block. So knowing that both going into the battle and in the battle is very helpful. You know, knowing your opponent's Chewbacca is about to taunt is useful. Knowing that this particular character has a heal is incredibly useful. Now, yes, this is fairly obvious, but it's really something to know, and especially in Galactic War, where you don't get surprised by your opponent's lineup, just go ahead and research them. If you don't know Asajj Ventress and her abilities, go to the Star Wars Cantina, look her up, boom, now you have a really good idea of what's going to happen to you. You can make your strategies around that. One thing that I missed already is when you're talking about cooldowns and your abilities, it is really important to track them. And this can be confusing because you're going from one battle to the next, but you need to remember, okay, when is Luminara's heal going to be up? Is it 2 turns? Is it 1 turn? This can be a big difference. Let's say you're looking at the turn meters and you see old Daka's going to go and then Luminara's going to go. And you're thinking, I don't really want to use old Daka's heal because no one's died yet and it's really weak. But if Luminara's heal is on cooldown, I have to use it because it's too risky otherwise. But if I know Luminara's cooldown is available and her heal is available, I can try to stun someone with old Daka and then heal up with Luminara. So it's really important to keep track of that, and it can be tough. And if you need to, write it down. You know, she has 2 more to go, 1 more to go. It'll be very useful for you. Okay, another point, and this is, this is a little bit less helpful, but you are going to lose sometimes. Even if you have a really good strategy and a good lineup, unless you have a ton of characters, sometimes you're just not going to clear it. Sometimes terrible things will happen to you. The computer will do lucky, crazy things with quad attacks, killing guys in one shot, and you'll just throw your hands up and go, all right, fine. Today is not the day where I am going to win this Galactic War. Last thing, and this might be the most important, a lot of people are unaware of one button that is available to you, and it's actually going to be the focal point of my next video. I'm going to talk only about this one button, and that is the retreat button. So if you go to the gear icon here, you look, what are you talking about, retreat button? There's no retreat button, there's help and there's audio. But once your opponent gets 1 attack off, retreat becomes available. And so this is something you can use to your advantage. So let's say they go ahead and they get a debuff on one of your characters. You can go ahead and retreat and get rid of it. So if Sidious goes and he puts a negative trait on all of your characters, you can just walk out. So here, Barris attacked me once. I say, okay. Now this would be a terrible time to retreat because I've got healing immunity on her. I have the advantage. But if I wanted to, if I felt like this battle wasn't going my way, I just hit retreat. Boom. I'm out of the battle. Now, all specials that were used, all cooldowns that were used, they are still used, but all of the buffs and debuffs are gone. So you don't want to use this when you go like, Poggle the Lesser, buff all my dudes, do another buff to all my dudes. I think I'll retreat. That is not the right time to use it. But let's say you get there, Sidious almost dead, and then they taunt up with Chewbacca. You just go, retreat, go back in, kill Sidious. So it can be an incredibly useful tool. I haven't used it much myself because, to be honest, by the time I discovered it, I have all these guys. I don't really need to worry about that. And it's much more time consuming to try to go through and retreat every time. But I want to make sure I tell you because it is an incredibly useful tool, especially for the free-to-play player. And like I said, my entire next video is going to be how to best use this button. So hopefully you gained a fair amount of information on the Galactic War. I'm rooting for you. Go for that free clear. It's worth so much. There are so many good characters in the Galactic War. Go get them. So until next time, I'll see you again on Tiny Grimes Games. And as always, if you want to support me even further, that is much appreciated. There's a link below to my Patreon page. Thank you.